Kevin Baxter writes about soccer and other things from the LA Times, where he has worked 24 years, but he's covered 5 World Cups, 3 Olympic Games, 6 World Series, and a Super Bowl, and has contributed to 3 Pulitzer Prize winning series at the Times and Miami Herald. But we brought him in today to help explain where Major League Soccer is heading. Kevin, welcome to Takeline.
Thanks for having me in.
Okay, so Charlotte FC broke an attendance record over the weekend with 74,479 fans in attendance for their first ever home game. That is wild.
It's truly nuts.
Like, that's crazy. So what does that say about where the visibility of Major League Soccer is trending? My goodness.
Well, one of the things it says is that Major League Soccer is a little bit hypocritical because they're talking about this record crowd in an NFL stadium. But they've also been on record multiple times as saying they don't want to play in NFL stadiums anymore, that they want to have smaller soccer-specific downtown arenas where fans are close to the action. So on one hand, they celebrate the big crowds in places like Charlotte, Atlanta, Seattle, which also plays in an NFL stadium. But then on the other hand, they say they want these smaller, intimate venues. Another problem with Charlotte is, as you mentioned, that was their first ever home game. They're 2 games into their MLS experience. They haven't won a game yet. So how many of those 73,000 plus are going to come back to the next game if this team is winless? The coach has already said, take a look at the roster in preseason. He said, we got a lot of problems. You know, he said basically his quote in Spanish was, we're screwed. So that's how he talked about his own team in the preseason. So it's great, you know, out of the box to have this big crowd. It's wonderful. It shows that there is a possibility and there is a fan base for this, but the team's going to have to win. And that's what it comes down to. MLS is going to have to put a product on the field because all of us every weekend, we can watch the Premier League, we can watch the Bundesliga, we can watch the best teams in Europe play. And then we look at MLS, and if the quality is not there, we're not going to spend our money there.
Charlotte FC are now the 28th team to join MLS. The league plans to hit 30 shortly by, about 2023 with the addition of Sacramento and St. Louis as MLS teams. The expansion has really been remarkable in how it's taken place. And I think one of the things that I'm always interested in when I'm thinking about MLS and how they've managed to do this is the ownership structure of MLS, which I think is quite different than any other structure in certainly American pro sports, at least the big ones. Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, a little bit about expansion, a little bit about the ownership structure. It's a single entity structure. That means technically MLS, the league, not the teams, they're in charge of all players and player salaries. The players actually sign a contract with the league. They don't sign with the team. So if LA Galaxy decides to sign a certain player, they negotiate the contract, they fit it under the salary structure, but the player signs with the league. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, it means a lot of things. It means, one, that when a player becomes a free agent and Charlotte is bidding against the Galaxy, realistically, it's the league bidding against itself. That's why free agency really has yet to take off in MLS. What it was is it's a way to try to keep salaries down. The last professional soccer league in the U.S., the North American Soccer League, 35 years ago, they ran into a problem when owners started to pay players what they couldn't afford to pay them, and the league folded. So there's this salary structure thing. But when you talk about expansion, and they've expanded back in their mid 2000s, around 2005, 6, the league was like 12 teams. And now they're going to be at 29 next season with St. Louis. And then Las Vegas is going to join. That's going to be 30. There's a number of reasons for that. One, they want the geographical footprint. We're a continent-sized country. We need to have a continent-sized leagues, and there's cities that want leagues. Cities want to get in. Owners want to get in. Some big-name owners have come in recently. People like Ken Griffey Jr. and Russell Wilson bought into Seattle. Matthew McConaughey in Austin. Dwayne Wade in Salt Lake. These teams pay up. In the case of Charlotte, the most recent expansion team that started playing, their expansion fee was $325 million. That's what they paid to join the league. Now you say, well, that's not like baseball teams pay more. Yes, they do. But think about the fact that that's 2.5 times what MLS gets from its TV contract. So
what?
Yeah, their TV contract per year right now, it's the last year of this TV contract. And it's with a number of entities, MLS, Fox, Univision. Yep. They get $90 million. They get $325 million in one check from a team just to say, I'm going to be part of your league. That doesn't include the stadium. That doesn't include the players. It's always been my feeling that MLS, which has not made a profit, they're in their 26th season, the league itself has not made a profit, that these expansion fees are helping subsidize and fund the league. That's why they keep expanding. It's starting to get a little bit unwieldy. And we talked first about the talent level. Well, every time you add a team, that means you add 25, 30 new players. If the talent level is not conducive to a Premier League, which we know it's not, or a Bundesliga, or attractive product in the field, why do you keep diluting it by adding players who may not be ready for prime time every year?
Quick follow-up. One thing I think the expansion has done, and the kind of running of the academy systems of various MLS teams, is it's managed to uncover perhaps at a younger time frame some talent in the U.S. That can then move up the system and then join the U.S. national team and get into that system. That said, how long can this go on under this same kind of structure? You said it, like, it's not to call it a Ponzi scheme, but like when the expansion fees are such a huge part of the income, how long until that's untenable for there to be another stream of income for this entity, and can it grow much bigger under a single entity structure? Takeline is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Woof woof. I want to tell you about the easiest, most fun way to spice up your season. It's Underdog Fantasy and their brand new Pick'em game. Just pick over/under on your favorite or least favorite, or the player you think is the funniest looking, or whatever, player's stats, and you can win up to 20 times, 20x, in a single night. Underdog keeps it super simple with their easy-to-use website and mobile apps. You just pick between 2 and 5 players, and you can take home some serious cash, folks. Use code TAKELINE and get your first deposit doubled by Underdog. For instance, if you deposit $50, you get $50 in bonus cash. If you deposit $100, you get $100 in bonus cash. How long can they keep this up? Deposit your money and find out.
Well, you hinted at one solution, which is developing players. FC Dallas, their academy has been great. You know, they've had people come through like Ricardo Pepe and others that they have sold to Europe. And now there is a new mechanism in which they get a cut of the transfer deal for players they develop in their academy. That's one revenue stream that is being it's very, very lucrative for some teams, not so much for others. But the idea is, if FC Dallas can do it, why can't the Galaxy? Why can't Real Salt Lake? Why can't another team? And the idea is to produce more players for the team, but also to sell them. So that's one revenue stream. Another is TV. We talked a little bit about TV. It looks like the new TV deal will be maybe 3 to 4 times the worth of the current one. Okay, so that's still under $400 million a year. That's the English Premier League loses that in the seat cushions every weekend. But that's a start. And then I think the real inflection point will be 2026 when the World Cup comes to the US, Mexico, and Canada. I think you look at the demographics of soccer fans, they're very young. They have a disposable income. They're very computer savvy. They're sort of continental, if you want. When the World Cup comes, I just think that there's going to be sort of a soccer feeding frenzy. And that's when people I think are going to get into it. And they're going to say, hey, I can't fly to England to watch Manchester City play, but I can go down the street and watch the LA Galaxy. And that's pretty close. And there's some players I recognize from the World Cup. We've seen that with the women's national team, for example. So I think 2026 will be the inflection point.
So I'm curious, kind of just to piggy on that, you talked about the women's national team. Where are they in their league as opposed to how the Major League Soccer League is doing? Because to me, it feels like the Women's Soccer League has a handle on things, and we know they just won that big case, but where are they in all of that? That's the U.S. national soccer team, but where are they with in the sense of how their league is doing?
Well, their league is growing. This year it'll be 12 teams. It'll be the largest they've ever had. Salaries are not good. A lot of players wind up jumping to fledgling leagues in Europe, which there's a league in England now, which is pretty good, in Italy, and the league in France is very good. One in Spain. A really talented player came out of UCLA a year earlier. Her name is Mia Fischel. She was drafted in the first round in the NWSL draft and wound up going to play in Mexico instead. So The league it's over a decade old now. It's set itself up. It's got some decent owners, but it's coming out of a scandal-ridden season where a lot of coaches were accused of sexual assault and maybe not sexual assault, but sexual harassment. So the league is retrenching. They have new commissioner in charge on an interim basis. They have a lot of new owners, a lot of new coaches. There's a new energy. I talked to Jill Ellis, who used to be coach of the U.S. national team. She won 2 World Cups with the U.S. national team. She's now president of the fledgling team, the expansion team in San Diego. She looked at this as a reset, that they're going to get a chance to restart, start clean. She said it's very important that they expand and that they have more teams and that they become a continental sized league as well. But what she likes about the league is she said, yeah, there's maybe better players in some other leagues. Some of the other leagues may have, the Barclays, for example, is a financial supporter of the league in England. But what Jill said is our league is more competitive. You don't see the first and second place team play a game and the scoreline be 9-0, as we just saw in Spain last week. So, and that helps the national team. The national team is still the tip of the spear here because there are 23 players on the national team. We all recognize the names: Alex Morgan, Christian Press, Julie Ernst. They get filtered out to their club teams. And so you don't really have that star power on a club team. That's not there yet, as some MLS teams have.
As we head off into the season, any predictions here? NYFC won it last season. As a New York Red Bulls fan, that was very hard for me and disheartening. And my entire connection with New York Red Bull, in fact, has been broadly painful to me for over 15 years now, though we had some good times when Thierry Henry was there. What do you see coming? Any predictions for the season as we move on?
Well, I think we know already that Charlotte's not going to be very good. Even their coach doesn't think they are. I really like Seattle. I think Seattle is a really strong team. Oh, by the way, your Red Bulls beat Toronto yesterday, which is supposed to be good. So that's good. I really like Seattle. I think that they have a very good team. They're deep again. Garth Langaway, who is their general manager, is a magician, and he has money to spend, and he has a good team already. I think Nashville, moving over from the East, where they were a dominant team, over to the West, I think they're going to be very good. I look at the East and I see Bruce Arena, who is a little bit an interesting case because he had the best team in MLS history last year. They didn't win the title, but the regular season record was the best in MLS history. Then he's loaded up with a lot of older players he had from his prime years as coach of the Galaxy. And I commend the loyalty, but I wonder if all these guys that other teams don't want, how they're going to perform with Bruce. So far, they're playing pretty well, but we'll see how they do over 34 games.
He is Los Angeles Times columnist Kevin Baxter. Kevin, thank you so much for joining Takeline.
Thanks for having me on.